Cassie to just kind of give some thoughts on how you're perceiving a space and how you can engage strategies, whether you're a dental office onto a retailer, to just be thinking and mindful about what kind of space people are walking into and some items that might be able to be actionable for people to make some quick changes.
I can unmute myself. Can you guys all hear me? Okay, great. So I really, a lot of what Karen just said resonated. I think that the big takeaways for me were you want your clients or customers and also staff to be registering more oxytocin and feeling less triggered, right? So I think she's spot on in that we've all been in spaces where we instantly feel at ease or where we automatically register that we feel put off or uncomfortable. So right now, I know business owners are really struggling, right? And we're all asking ourselves, how long is it going to be like this? If I implement all these changes, will they be obsolete? So I tried to stick to some things that are fairly universal and that may be good strategies to employ even when we're not dealing with Corona. And I tried to ask myself really, like, how can we use the physical environment of our businesses as a way to de-escalate anxiety, and also think about how all the physical aspects of our business, the space that people enter into, is a really beautiful passive way to communicate with them. I think many people are a little bit uncomfortable with what they would sort of dub more of an aggressive take, right? Like somebody actually talking to them or coming up and correcting their behavior. You know, you need to stand 6 feet away from this other person. Like they would take that a little bit negatively. But what's great about taking a look at your space and assessing it from the standpoint of how are people using my environment, what are the processes inside of my business that are going to naturally have pain points, and then using that knowledge to create some clear indications of how you would like people to move through the environment without having to correct them personally, right? So your space is a great opportunity to do that. And in terms of what we notice when we come into spaces, there's what we see, there's what we hear, and then there's also this intangible of what we feel, right? So I'm trying to kind of look at those. When it comes to visuals, I think a lot of times we stop looking at the spaces that we use, right? So how long has it been since you took an actual walk into your waiting room with a fresh set of eyes? Is there a lot of unnecessary clutter? Are there items in that space that invite you to touch them that don't need to be touched? For example, a bowl of candy or, you know, some magazines, you know, like those are things that maybe you don't need right now. So kind of, I think the great thing about reapproaching the spaces that you're already in is to say, okay, well, if I can register that for me, every time I see clutter in a space, I'm automatically thinking that it's not clean, maybe I should go through my space with those eyes, with that mindset. So I think that's a great start. Layers of dust on things are an indicator that something's kind of not been well cared for. You know, we've all talked about, my husband and I joke that we want a bleach scented candle for our space just because right now, like knowing that something's clean is important. So, you know, if you have a table that you meet at, a conference table or an area where you'll be meeting with clients, just take 10 minutes beforehand to just wipe down those areas. Not only is that sanitary and you should be doing that anyways, but it will also register that in somebody's mind. So decluttering, minimalizing, editing, and then thinking about your processes in the space to make sure that you're clearly communicating visually, not verbally, how you want somebody to move through. I think we've all seen that in environments where we've noticed that a business owner is trying to address the public need. So we might have noticed things like tape on the ground so that indicates how far apart to stand. I've been really sensitive lately to noticing that a lot of people are using caution tape or bright orange, like danger tape, to rope off areas. And I get why we're doing that, but I don't know that that's maybe the best approach. So if you are, like, let's say you're in a waiting room space and you're wanting people to not sit every chair. You want to space out maybe 3 chairs. Some things you could do, you could take your chairs and turn them so that they face the wall. That way it's clear that those aren't to be, you know, for seating. And then you don't have to have the trouble of removing them. Or you might get on your copy machine and do something unexpected, like print out some great positivity quotes or some humorous things and pin those to the chairs, the backs of the chairs that you don't want people to sit in. And so then when people are looking at something, they're not feeling a lack. They're not thinking, oh, I can't sit there. Oh, bummer, Corona, yuck. They're looking at it and they're like reading something that makes them smile or makes them think differently. And then they're taking their seat, as opposed to seeing a nonverbal cue. The caution tape really sort of puts to mind crime scenes or makes you feel automatically on guard, right? So be kind of a little bit cognizant of that, how you're roping things off. And then other great indicators, like it's spring, guys, and we all want to feel like the beauty of new things and growing things. And so if you wanted to just get some nice plants once you've decluttered your space and bring a little bit of the outdoors in, that is a great way to make the space feel a little bit more loved and to just make human beings feel a little bit like the space is like a clinical environment. Because once you clean everything out and sanitize everything, you still need to add a little bit of warmth or personality to your space. In terms of color, some great things to know are that long wavelength colors like reds, oranges, bright, vibrant, super saturated, warm tones, those automatically are used by marketers to get people to feel a bit anxious. So like think about your fast food companies or your like Target. It's a big red Target, right? So they're trying to trigger in you a sense of urgency and a little bit of that low-grade anxiety because they want you to buy. The opposite of that are shortwave spectrum or cool tone colors, where you're using blues, whites, greens. Blue is the most culturally and universally liked color. We've done some surveys into that, and that's the color that automatically people feel a bit more ease. So if you are thinking about adding to your brand or changing up your space or bringing something into your space to help calm people down, try to reach for the cool tones or the colder end of the spectrum. How you create experiences. So the sidewalk wait is something we've all been thinking about. Like, are people waiting in line to get into your space outside? And if so, how can you make that less of a pain point? You might consider putting out a clapboard with some free Wi-Fi so that if you're a retailer or somebody who does a lunch hour rush, you're not losing those people who want something to do while they're waiting. So that could be a fun thing to do. That's easy to change afterwards too. So if you have a clapboard that says, hey, our Wi-Fi is here, here are the spots to wait on the sidewalk. After this is all over, you can certainly change that so not everybody can get on your Wi-Fi. Other things you might consider are trying to get people to feel good about having shown up for you, right? So we talked about what you see, we've talked about we'll get into what you smell, but how you feel is important. So we talked about those positivity quotes. Those could, instead of just going on the back of the chair, if you don't have a waiting room, those could go on the inside of the bathroom stalls or in spaces that people will spend a little bit of time where they don't expect you to be looking to cheer them up or make them feel better, right? The other areas that we all think about that I'm more cognizant of right now are door handles, right? So when you walk into a space, when you walk out of a space, I was at a retail store today actually, and I noticed that when I left, the retailer walked out of the store and wiped down the handle when I left. And that kind of came top of mind for me, and it made me feel like, oh, she cares about me and she cares about the next person. That's wonderful. And she, it was just nice to kind of see that. And obviously in some places you can't do that for everybody, but in a retail environment where it's slower right now, it was a great thing to do. Other things that I've noticed that make me happy or make me feel good are all of the beautiful sidewalk chalk artwork that a lot of kids in my neighborhood are doing. So I think you could easily incorporate something like that for your business. Draw a giant sunshine and write, we're so happy you're here. Or it doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be really simple and really welcoming. You might also consider having or teaching your team to really welcome people in a way. I'm sure Janine will touch on this a little bit more, but get a set of pom-poms or look at what you already have at home. Do you have some funny foam fingers? How can you cheerlead the people who are showing up for your business and really just like get them out of their box of like how they expect to be interacted with. Because if you can get them out of that expected space, you can catch them off guard a little bit and make a real impact and make a real change for them. Smell. So I think another important thing here is that some people are really sensitive. So when we're talking about soundscapes or smells, the key is subtle, right? So ask yourself what you would enjoy, but maybe not a ton of. Like, we've all been stuck in the elevator with the old lady who wears way too much perfume, and it's not a pleasant place to be. So get a room spray with like maybe a little bit of citrus, because citrus has been sort of known to kind of perk you up and make you feel a bit brighter, more awake. You could spray some of that in the air. You could diffuse some tea tree oil, which is known to have some great antiseptic properties. And you could put that on a timer so that it's not overwhelming, but it's just kind of occasionally letting that out. And that also is a subliminal trigger for people as well, in terms of scent is a really powerful subliminal communicator. So, you know, think about that. That could be a good opportunity for your staff to feel a bit of a pick-me-up during the day too. Soundscapes, if you've ever been to Disneyland, you know that they hide speakers everywhere and they play positive music or snippets. I don't think you need to be obnoxious with this, but maybe you look for a chill vibes mix on Spotify and you put that, you know, positive Sunday morning tunes. You put that low key playing in the background just to kind of set the tone of the environment. So those are things that you might hear, smell, notice. I do think that the biggest opportunity you have right now is to do something to address what people are already feeling, even if you can't do everything. Just do a couple things that will not only touch on how they feel safe, which is a clean environment, but how they feel seen and how you might be able to make them feel just a little bit better in this crummy situation.